Welcome to Chat and Chai with moi, your host, Karishma Bazday. This is the space where we aim to empower and inspire women through other women's stories. So if that sounds like your vibe, then girl, you found your tribe. Grab a cup of chai, get comfy, and get ready to be inspired. My next guest is someone who has come into my life very recently in a very interesting way. And honestly, I have been so inspired by her story and her journey that I knew I had to have her on the show. So without further ado, I introduce you to Susan Kaufman. Susan, welcome to Chat and Chai. Thank you so much for being here and for giving us your time. I just want to explain to everyone watching and everyone listening that this is the first time Susan and I have met each other. And Susan came into my life in a very interesting way. I know your lovely daughter, Veronica, very well. Not very well, but I met her as well at an event, and we happened to start chatting. And Veronica works for Petals and for the Flower Cafe, and they are responsible for putting this beautiful set together. And I had a meeting with Veronica to discuss our set design, and a week before she had sent me a message on Instagram saying, Karishma, my mom and my sister, they have this project and they'd love to send you this puzzle book for your daughter. And I said, of course, that's so wonderful, not knowing anything really about what they were doing, but I thought this would be great. I'm sure Isla would love it and I would love to support them. So the puzzle book came and I was so impressed with it, and Isla loved it. And I was chatting to Veronica about this puzzle book, and I was like, tell me more about this. And she started telling me this wonderful story about her mom and her sister and how this wonderful project, was birthed into life. And I was just so inspired, like honestly beyond inspired. I went home and I told Gal, I said, baby, I've heard this story and it's so amazing and I can't wait to meet Susan and we have to have her on the podcast. And here you are.
Thank you for having me.
You're so welcome.
It's divine to meet you.
Susan, let's start at the beginning. Tell me a bit about yourself and
what can I tell you?
And who you are. And
I'm a very ordinary wife and mother to 4 children.
Okay.
And 7 grandchildren.
Wow.
We as you know, we're living in Cape Town, but we actually hail from Zimbabwe. And we've been here about 16 or 17 years. The move wasn't easy because we left Zimbabwe on a high. We had lots of interests, business interests, and my husband was in mining.
Okay.
And that came to an abrupt end, and we had to make a move. Actually, it was more voluntary than had to, because we had 3 children living in Cape Town, and our youngest daughter said to me one Saturday evening she was lonely and wasn't born to be an only child. And it was that point that we'd lost the mine, and I said, that's it, I'm off. And I packed up with my daughter and came to Cape Town to be with the others, V and her 2 siblings. So now we were 4 together, and my husband traversed back and forth for quite a while. I didn't do very much in the beginning except be a mum. I've done lots of things when we were in Zimbabwe. We had a beautiful clothing store and a shoe store and a toy store, and I'd done lots of other interesting charity work, etc. But that pulled me along, and I got here, and I didn't do very much for the first couple of years. I was stunned to be in a new place.
I'm sure.
And to now gather my roots and to be a mother again, because I wasn't used to having the children at home.
Right.
They'd already left and gone to university. So we had to set up home again, which we did, blessed, and we're lucky, and I'm full of gratitude that we could. And time went on, and then I did quite a few interesting things here. We made toilet paper. That was one of the, can you believe that?
Wow.
making toilet paper. That's a huge thing.
That's a huge thing, and we all need toilet paper.
And we all need toilet paper, but at the time when we started, I didn't know that it was run by a cartel, and that you'd soon very much get caught up and have to abide by the rules of the cartel. It wasn't so pleasant.
The secrets of the toilet paper industry.
Secrets, right. I could add to that, but I won't. And we quickly got out of that, and then I started looking after people. So I started a property management company, which was very successful, and I remained in that with my partner for about 8 to 10 years, and then decided one day that I needed to travel a lot and see my children, because by this stage I had a child in Australia and a child in London.
Okay.
And I needed to be away a lot, so I obviously couldn't have a partnership with somebody who didn't have children away and didn't understand.
Right.
And certainly didn't understand grandchildren, which she's the most fantastic person and a very close friend of mine today. Anyway, I got out of that, and then time went on and I did a couple of small things here and then. I'm the type of person that when I see there's a gap, I'll run for it. If you tell me the necklace that you're wearing could really be needed on this market, I will sit down and make that necklace until I make it perfectly, until I find a market to get rid of it. So I did a lot of bits and pieces with my hands, a lot of crocheting, knitting, and getting products out there and making things, etc. But nobody appreciates the cost of what goes into making a garment, so you can't make a business out of it.
Exactly.
Really, you can't.
Especially in this day and age where everything's so fast-paced and instantaneous.
You can't do it. Nobody pays for handmade goods.
No, it's
It's
so
not
sad.
isn't it just?
So sad.
Because there's so much time and effort goes into it, you can't charge for it.
Yeah.
And how do you charge for it?
Exactly. How do you monetize your time?
How do you equate that? Correct. Exactly. Absolutely, you can't. And then it's exactly a year ago, I was in England with my children, and needs called, because suddenly we realized that financially we needed to do something else. Mm-hmm. And we were in a bit of a dip, and I thought, no, not going down that track, not getting into that dip. And my daughter said, Mom, we need some books made out of felt for her. She runs a play school.
Okay.
I said, okay. And I went out and I bought felt, and I bought the right scissors to cut felt, and I laid it out, and I thought, I'm now going to make books from felt. Well, to anybody who has successfully made books from felt, bravo. But for me, felt has its own agenda.
Right.
And when you put it on the table and cut it, it goes this way, that way, everywhere. And I thought, it was me or the felt, but we weren't working together.
Right.
And the felt went into a bag and out to charity, and that was the end of that.
Okay.
And then getting back on the aeroplane on the way back from England, I thought, what am I going to do? I have to think of something that's I'm going to enjoy doing.
Right.
It's going to involve my hands. Mm-hmm. It's going to occupy my mind. Yep. And it's going to bring in some money.
Right.
But above all, that it's going to be something that resonates with education.
Okay.
That's what was my main drive. And for the masses. I didn't want it to be something elitish. Mm-hmm. But as you know, things cost.
Right.
So I came back and I said to Claire, what are we going to do, Claire? She said, Mom, I still want you to work on this book. The idea of a puzzle in a book, but we didn't have the right name at that stage. And she worked on it. I got back on the Tuesday. By the Thursday, we'd bought our first laminating machine and bought the first printer and everything else we needed to go with it.
Wow.
We made lots of mistakes that weekend. We had lots of fun, copious cups of tea, and we just got going.
Right.
It took a while until it looked like what it looks today. And along the line, we've had lots of mistakes and had to correct them, etc., etc. But now we have what's known as the puzzle book.
Right.
And you've seen it.
And I
You
love
got
it.
level 1,
Yes.
and we do it up to level 3
Okay.
in English, and about to do level 3 in Afrikaans, and we're launching into German as well.
Wow.
And then I have to do French, and we're going to go up to level 4.
Wow.
What can I say? That's where we are today. But my dream,
Yes.
my passion, is to get this book into underprivileged schools, rural schools and underprivileged schools, to kids that don't have opportunity to learn to the ability that they should.
Right.
So I thought, how am I going to do this? I can't afford to make thousands of books
Right.
and just give them out.
Right.
At the same time, I need to remember that it's a business. So I started with sponsorship, going to companies who would give their CSI
Yes.
and asking for sponsorship, and with their sponsorship of saying, right, we'll sponsor one school or a half a school. One school we worked out to be 50 books, a half a school, or maybe it was a small school, so 50 books would be for 2 schools, but we went by 50 books or 25 books, or if somebody wanted to give us sponsorship for 10 books, they'd give us the money,
Right.
and we'd make up the books and then post it through Lions.
Yes.
So that Lions would then find the schools in the rural and underprivileged areas, and already we've reached out to many, many, many children.
Wow.
And I've had some wonderful feedback from them. And that's how we've got it going.
Because it is so brilliant for something like an underprivileged school, because the books are so durable. And
They're durable.
reusable.
And reusable.
And I think
And
that's
the
amazing.
children have got a chance to fine motor
Yes.
skills,
skills completely.
and the hand-eye coordination and recognition of numbers, alphabet,
Shapes.
pictures and shapes and
Exactly.
sizes,
Exactly.
and that's where it's gone well.
Wow.
So I'm continuing to do this.
I love
And I'm not,
that.
who says at 72 that you give up? That's when you start. When you start, because there shouldn't be an age to this,
No, they shouldn't.
to
but
anything.
It's so inspirational to me, and I was chatting to Gail about this this morning. Hearing your story was so inspirational to me, because I grew up with such a different concept of older people. In my culture, when people get old, it's kind of like you take on all your ailments, life is really slowing down, you know, and it really is that like life is ending type of thing, you know. All the Indian aunties I know, they're just, you know, taking care of their families, and they're the matriarchs, but they are the cooks of the house or whatever. There's no rushing off to climb a mountain or do different things. And, you know, people like you and Gail's parents are also just so inspirational, because they're older, but they're so active, and they just blew my mind.
You have to be. Because there shouldn't be, for health, there's no commitment to age.
Right.
Bad health can come at any age.
So true.
Any age. So why should we, at a certain age, should we slow down? If you're able to keep going and you have the zest for life, which I really feel I have, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to grow old and cold.
How do you cultivate that zest in your life?
I'm just not prepared to lie down and say, that's it.
Never say die.
Never say die.
Right.
And I just keep going. Get up in the morning, go for a long walk, exercise. There's some days you don't feel like it, but there's some days at 36 that you don't feel like it as well.
Completely. Absolutely.
So let's not put an age to anything.
Right.
That's the whole thing that I feel.
It's having this...
When I say I'm 72, I go, where did those years go?
It's almost about having this evergreen approach to life.
Absolutely.
That life just
Absolutely.
life goes on. And yes,
Why shouldn't your father ride the Argus?
Why shouldn't he?
Why shouldn't he?
Exactly.
If he's got time to practice to ride the Argus, go for it.
Right.
So he'll ride it and it'll take him 5 hours till cut off time. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
What's the difference? He's done it.
He's achieved it.
He's achieved it.
Exactly.
And that's what I feel. As much as I can give of my life, I give a lot of my life to my children, which is my joy, to being there for them, because the kids work hard. I've got 2 daughters here in Cape Town, and they both work hard and they both got children. They need me. Or put it another way, I need them.
Right.
So I'm happy to get in the car and take children from A to B and be busy. But that's not filling my other side of me.
That's not filling your cup.
That's not filling my cup.
Right.
So I have to work on my health, because a worn out phrase, but it's true. Health is wealth.
Yes.
Health is wealth. I've got to work on that. And the other side, I need to work. There was a time when I didn't need finance.
Right.
And now's the time that finances come around, that extra finance really helps.
Yeah.
Because life's changed.
Completely. I think the cost of living has changed. How we approach life has changed.
I've got children who live abroad that I never thought I'd have.
Yes.
I've got to get to go and see them.
Yeah. As a new mom myself, I think the topic of motherhood is something that really interests me at this phase of my life. So I'd love to know if you could tell me your journey around motherhood. How did motherhood change you? Did you always knew you wanted to have kids?
I always knew I wanted a lot of kids.
Okay.
And I actually had 5 children. We lost 1 at childbirth.
Okay.
And I knew I wanted to have a lot of children, and I knew that I wanted them pretty close together.
Okay.
But then we lived in an area where I could afford to have lots of children. I had lots of help. Right. Open space.
Which is vital, right? The help, the village is vital.
I had lots of help. Okay. Lots and lots of help. I didn't have to worry about leaving children for 10 minutes or 15 minutes or somebody to help me fetch and carry or whatever. How did it change me as a person? I think, Karishma, you just grow into it. Your child is now what, 4?
No, 2.5.
2.5. If you don't know where 2.5 has gone, where have 2.5 years gone?
Exactly.
And yet you've reached a point overnight in a blink where your child all of a sudden is going to school.
Yeah.
How did you get there?
How did we get there?
Right. So I turn around and say, how did I get there having a 42-year-old?
Wow.
How did that happen?
Okay.
Where did it come from? How did it change me as a person? I evolved as like a butterfly. That's like you have. Nobody prepared you for it.
No. And no one can, I think.
Nobody can.
No one
From
can.
the day they say to you that you're pregnant, that you hear that you're pregnant, you're preparing yourself. And it just happens.
And did you have great pregnancies with all your children?
Great pregnancies. Every time I gave birth, I said, gee, I'm sorry, that one's over.
Oh, it was the same with me.
I really did.
loved it.
People have looked at me and said, how can you say that? I can say that because that's exactly how I felt. I was blessed to have that child. And even the child we lost, there was a reason. There was an absolute reason that he wasn't to make it.
Right.
He obviously wasn't well enough and couldn't be with us any longer. His time was done.
That was obviously a very difficult thing to go through for
It's
you.
a very difficult thing, and I want to tell you, it's been 37 years since that baby, and it feels like yesterday.
Wow.
And yet, I am blessed that it happened the way it happened. Because if this child had been born with disabilities and not well, not for me, not for my sake, but for the child's sake, it was best that the time was done when it was done. He'd reached that was his time.
Did it take you a
Of
long
course,
time
you
to
still
that
come, still to this
kind
day.
of positive outlook? You
No,
know?
the positivity just comes with time. There are times you feel sad and think there's hardly a day that goes by that I don't think, how did that happen?
Right.
But you can't wear your heart on your sleeve. And in a busy world, you haven't got time to wear your heart on a sleeve.
Exactly.
You've got to dust yourself off and walk on.
Definitely. And
it's not a matter of being hard, and it's not a matter of being just accepting it. It's a matter that what was supposed to happen to me.
And you've got to find your own healing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, no one else is going to do it for you.
No.
And you can't sit and dwell on
there's
that.
There's
no
tablet that's going to help that.
Exactly.
And there's no meditation that's going to help that. You just have to work. You live around it.
Right.
As people do. God forbid people have illnesses, and we've all had things that we've got to live around. And you do. You live around something.
Do you think that journey was very different for you than it was for your husband?
Oh, I think so. He's very sensitive, and incidentally, he helps me a lot with the books.
Yes,
he's
Veronica,
very, very, very involved.
I love that.
He's very involved.
I love that.
Yeah, because there's a lot that goes into the book.
I'm sure.
So he's been amazing. But getting back to saying, did he feel any? Yes, he does, because I think men are... They just take things in a different way.
They've got different coping mechanisms.
Different coping mechanisms. And he's a closed book, he's not an open book.
Right.
So if he suffered internally, he's had to deal with that. That's his path.
Yes.
You can't ride somebody else's path.
Absolutely.
But we're both at the point where we are very grateful for everything that's happened to us, including the dips.
Right.
Because if you don't have the downs, you certainly can't appreciate the ups.
Absolutely.
And that's a saying that people use without really them having affected them. But having been through downs, and having been through downs financially, it's not until you've been through them that you can appreciate the upside.
Of course.
And we've been through it, and we're on top of it, and we succeeded. And that's the main thing.
And Susan, tell me, how have you worked to cultivate a relationship with your kids as you've aged and as they have aged?
Just letting them be. They have to experience things for themselves. And you have to reach a point saying, they're an adult. That's their life.
Right.
You can advise them, but don't expect them to take your advice.
Okay.
You can't. I can tell you what to do, but it's up to you whether you're going to accept it or not. That's their life. They must get on with it. And how have we reached that point? Trust and belief in one another.
That's beautiful.
And allowing them to come home and talk about anything at any stage, even when they were little. When there was bullyingness, let's talk about the bulliness. And that's a very real topic today.
That's
very real topic. It's a scary topic.
Scares me to my core. I mean, I've done a lot of work with anti-bullying foundations and gone to a lot of the schools to give talks, and I was bullied myself, growing up. But it's heart-wrenching to think that your child is going to be now put into the situation where they're exposed to that. Because
you feel so aware of it.
Exactly.
And there's nothing you can do. You can't tell a 2.5-year-old how to cope with it.
No, and I can't be by her side every second of the day
No,
preventing it from happening to her.
So you've just got to leave her in a space where you feel safe and you feel that you trust the people that you're leaving her with and trust that they'll know how to cope with a situation if it comes up. And it will come up. Yeah. Not necessarily bullying, but things will come up.
Of course.
Where you're not going to be around to cope with them. And please God, she'll have, Isla, she will have the strength to cope with everything herself. And she will.
How do you think you cultivate that in a young person? To still remain sensitive, but also have a sense of resilience? because I think that's so important. It's hard as a parent because you want to protect your children, and I never want to wrap her in cotton wool because I believe that she needs to be resilient in this world.
Karishma, I think in the last 20 years or so, there's so much research into how to helping a child and how does a mother or father, a parent, cope with all this,
Right.
that you can drive yourself nuts.
This is it. It's too overwhelming.
Thinking about it's totally
It's too
overwhelming.
much. Do this, don't do that. Do
No.
this. This is right, that's wrong.
Put it all aside and go by the seat of your pants. Okay. And just enjoy the journey and even the bad times. You'll get over them and the child will get over them. And you can't, as you said, wrap the child in cotton wool.
Right.
You absolutely can't. You have to let the child go. And going to school or being with other children is your first step.
Yep.
And she'll come back and repeat things that she had at school. You can't go correcting her all the time.
No.
She's got to experience that for herself.
Exactly.
There's no magic words, I'm afraid. There aren't any magic words. Because what's good for you is not good for the next person.
This is it.
Okay?
This is it.
And you can read as many books as you like, but in the end it's your gut. Your gut feeling that will drive you. And you will. Have faith. Don't give up on your faith. And know that you will help her to as much as you can help her, to the best of your ability, and the rest you just go with it. Ride with it.
And I think that's so key, because it's always fascinated me, all these parenting books and everything. I'm like, just with my friends, I've seen my child is so different. I could never say what my friend said to her son and have it work with Isla. So how do we ever think that some parenting book is going to give us all the answers?
It's not going to give you the answers. And when you come rushing home from a play date and go looking for that book that tells you how to deal with a child that is told, the friend's told your child, I don't like you.
I know.
Go and look that up in a book.
Doesn't
You're
exist.
not going to find that.
No.
So you have to just say to you speak to your child the way that you have to. Yes, you are loved, and that child does love you. Maybe that child's feeling sore that day, or not a happy child that day. But you also can't stop and examine everything.
Exactly.
You'll drive yourself nuts as a parent.
Yeah.
So, and I'm no educationalist, and I'm no guru. I'm just a mother. And thank God, so far my kids have turned out lucky and okay. I'm not to say they haven't had bumps along the road, and they probably had lots of bumps that they haven't told me about either.
Right.
But that's their journey.
Yeah. Susan, I want to know, like you said, you've experienced many bumps in the road and many lows. What do you think has been your, I don't want to say tips and tricks, but what has been your go-to to really picking yourself up in those moments?
Just knowing that there's the other side, that you can climb up this hill, and there will come a time when you can say, I did it and I'm out of it, and look back and say, I'm not going to fall with this one. I'm not going to allow myself to fall down.
Right.
This too will pass.
Exactly. So comes back to that positive mindset and that belief and that faith.
And that faith. And something I learned many years ago, and it's also carried me through. Dealing with failure is more of a success than success itself.
Absolutely. Wow.
It's profound.
It's profound. I love that.
And that's actually, you can't stop as well and keep reminding yourself of that when you come to a crossroad in your life, as you too have come to some crossroads. How do we get over it? We just say, I can get through this. I can get through this. And I will get through this.
Yeah.
Positivity.
And
gratitude.
And gratitude, exactly.
Gratitude is...
Aren't we all so afraid of failure?
Absolutely. Who wants to fail?
But it's so
at
necessary.
anything?
It is so necessary, those failures.
But dealing with it, as I just said, is more of a success.
Exactly. And it's going to fill your cup and fill your toolbox with things that you need for the next time something comes around. You'll be like, maybe this instant brought you to your knees, and the next time something comes around, you'll be like, wait a minute, here I am standing, able to face this,
Listen, sometimes your toolbox hasn't got enough tools in it.
That too, yeah.
And you've just got to learn to adjust.
And adapt.
Mm-hmm. And we can use all these words, but when you're faced with a situation, you have to get through it.
There's no two ways about it.
No.
We're in this life. And if you want to keep going, you've got to keep going.
If this is what we dealt, this is what we dealt.
I think there's such a beautiful way of looking at it. I think there's a lot of people who kind of don't have that outlook and that view, and that is what keeps them down and unable to rise up and rise above.
Listen, none of us are built the same. And I do ache for people who are not able mentally to pick themselves up. And it's a very serious issue today.
It is.
And one that we shouldn't take lightly. And more throughout the world, you hear people talking about mental awareness. It's very real. It's something that was brushed under the carpet at one time.
For a long time. Even in a lot of cultures, I feel that way in my culture, that it's still quite taboo, to speak about these things. Or, if you say you're depressed, people are like, oh, whatever, go for a walk, do this. It's taken very lightly and brushed off.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you've got to find a way of coping with it.
Exactly. It's all on our journey.
It's on our journey. We all have a journey. Everybody has a different journey. And there can't be books written about everybody's how many types of journey. You might fit into a little bit of that one that's written about, a little bit of that one, a little bit of the other one. And you have to make your own story in the end.
And isn't that the beauty of the human experience?
Absolutely.
It completely is. Susan, what has been some of the challenges that you faced with the puzzle books? How have you overcome them? And what has been wonderful or challenging about working with your husband on these books?
Oh, it can be challenging. It can be challenging. You bite your tongue.
Okay.
And you go forward. But we both know where we've got to get to. He's got his jobs.
Okay.
He's what he has to do. I have what I have to do. And occasionally the tension gets a little bit high, but you brush it over.
Right.
Okay, go for a walk. But we both know the end result is we want this book to succeed.
Right.
And every time I get an order, I'm going, amen, another
Yes.
order, thank you,
Right.
another order. And every time we get a sponsorship, I'm going, another child that wouldn't have had a chance to get a book.
Wow.
So the challenges have been, without any measure of doubt, load shedding.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Because we need the electricity to print.
Right.
We need it to laminate. And sometimes it's gone 4 hours and we've got a deadline on X amount of books that have to get out. Because as much as I think that I'll make stock, remember we've only been going about 10 months.
Wow.
10 months since the first invoice went out.
Wow.
And we've done about 1,800 books.
That is incredible.
All with these hands.
Incredible.
Yeah.
Amazing. Wow.
It's a lot of books.
It's a lot of books. So do you try and kind of have a stockpile of a few?
I try, but it's thankfully it hasn't worked. Thank goodness.
Exactly.
But my dream is and I will soon get somebody else in to help.
Okay.
My dream is to get this out to those underprivileged children in circumstances that don't have a chance to learn to the extent that our privileged children have learned a lesson.
Well, I will be putting all of Susan and Puzzle Book with Love detail in all the show notes. So if there's anyone out there that would love to sponsor some books, I think that would be so amazing. What a wonderful thing to be a part of. So that will all be down there. Susan, lastly, what do you think is the secret to a long and happy marriage? or secrets? I'm sure there's many. I'm sure there might be many.
Trust.
Okay.
Trust. And even then, you've got to work on it sometimes, because sometimes the trust is not 100%. Sometimes you do query things.
Right.
Being able to discuss everything.
Communication.
Communication. Communication and trust. Because no two people can be the same.
Of course.
It's quite amazing that marriages do last.
Exactly. When you think about it.
When you think about it.
Yeah.
But it's something we've got to work on. I would say trust and communication.
And how do you keep that spark alive, even now?
You've got to try.
Got to work on it.
Make that cup of tea even stronger.
Right.
Literally.
Okay.
Go and cook something that you know that he loves, or he must get in the kitchen and cook something that you like.
Right.
It's both ways.
It works, but exactly.
It works both ways.
Gail and I always say, we've got to keep watering our love.
You've got to.
Got to keep watering it, We've planted this beautiful seed and now we've got to nurture
You've
it.
absolutely got to.
Can't just leave it there to do its own thing,
No.
You've got to...
But you also can't walk around all day going, how can I keep this alive?
Exactly.
How can I keep this alive? Have I done enough today?
That's true. And sometimes life gets in the way. We're at this phase now where we're like, we new
You're
parents.
busy.
We are busy.
You're very busy.
If we get 30 minutes to connect at the end of the day, we're like, that's a score. That feels like a whole date night, to us.
That's okay.
And that's okay.
Make that 30 seconds a date night.
Exactly. And
that's all.
I told them, I said, you're finally at home and we expected it to be so much. And I know it's not fireworks right now, but this is the dream. Doing life with you every day is the dream.
Well, then keep it alive.
So.
It doesn't have to be, sometimes you can just have a half an hour together and that will light your fire for 2 months.
Exactly.
That'll keep you going.
Exactly.
It's a challenge.
It is, and a beautiful challenge.
And we're blessed to be able to have a challenge.
Completely. Yes.
And if we can help other people, you come across friends who are not so happy, if you can give them a little bit of time and nurturing and whatever along the road, that helps too.
Definitely.
Making sure that others are not lonely.
Susan, how have you cultivated, or I don't know if you have female friendships in your life, and how important do you think they are?
My friends are very important to me.
I think it's vital
Very,
as women
very,
to have that network.
100%. And I think it's easier for a woman to form friendships than it is a man.
Yes. I think we crave that more than them, that community more than them.
Our nurturing.
Yes.
That comes into it. It's natural for us. And my friends are very important to me, and they always will be.
And you make it a priority in your life to
I
cultivate
do.
that? And
my friends live all over the world.
Okay.
So I make a time to say, tonight, I'm going to contact 2 of them.
I love that.
And next week I'll contact another 2 because everybody's living different lives all over the world.
We're all busy, we all got things going on.
Absolutely. And the pandemic has taught us something. The pandemic was horrendous. And we're still suffering consequences of it.
Right.
But we should have learned one big lesson, and that's to be thankful.
Yes.
And to take time, we had that slow down time to appreciate what we do have.
Exactly.
In the face of fear that what might happen, because it was a scary time. We could have lost it all.
And it really made us appreciate the little things, the simple things, being able to wake up next to each other.
Correct.
Every day.
Correct.
Being able to buy a piece of chicken or, a slice of bread, like all of these tiny things.
To be able to go for a walk.
Oh my gosh, to breathe the fresh air, to see the sunshine.
Correct.
And
to see a friend.
Yeah, friendships, exactly. Wasn't that, for me, that was a huge, I craved my people, my tribe. I craved that. And to not be able to sit and have a cup of coffee with a friend and
Absolutely.
a chat was just wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think we're meant to forget that too quickly either.
I think this was all intentional. This was some higher power definitely at play going, guys, wake up.
Wake up. It gave us time to breathe, didn't it?
It did.
And to think.
Yeah.
And to fear.
And to fear. Yeah, and to feel.
And to feel.
And to feel.
And to feel the fear.
And all of a sudden, we were just stuck with ourselves and our emotions and the realities of our lives, and everyone was going.
And there was no book written. You couldn't
No.
go to any book.
There was no help. There was no self-help book or
No.
self-help podcast or anything. You know, there was no resources to say how do you get through this, and we had to sit and face ourselves
Until Zoom.
Exactly.
Then we had all those words that came out. Isolation and Zoom and podcasts.
All the lockdown words.
Lockdown words.
Yeah. What was the biggest lesson, your biggest takeaway?
Appreciation of the time when it was over. It was amazing.
It was.
But I really appreciated just coming out of it being well.
Yes.
And not having got COVID. We lost a lot of friends during COVID.
I'm so sorry to hear that. We all did. There were big losses. And the scary thing, I think, was, you know, in our family, we lost a lot of young people.
Yes.
Very young people. That was, you know, very jarring.
We weren't prepared for it. It just happened overnight, didn't it?
Yeah. I mean...
Overnight, we were all in shock.
I had baby showers. I was pregnant. I gave birth smack down in the middle of lockdown. You know, we had baby showers planned and things planned, and, you know, we had nothing for Isla.
Just shows you who was in charge.
We had nothing. She came. She was wrapped in just the towel that we had, you know, in our closet because we thought we had time.
And it was okay.
And it was okay, exactly. And
somebody dropped some clothes at your gate and said, "Here."
Exactly. And we joked, we said we'll never have another child because it won't be a lockdown, because we loved that time together, that it gave us that gift of just being a
please
family.
God, you'll have another child. and you will just, it will happen.
Yeah.
Motherhood happens.
Exactly. When you're least expecting it.
And you adjust. And there are no pearls of wisdom and words of wisdom that one can offer when one is older, except just to say, grab the moments, enjoy them, and go with the flow.
Yes.
And don't question too much.
That's definitely what motherhood has taught me.
Don't question too much.
Go with the flow.
And just go with it.
Yeah. Enjoy the ride.
Enjoy the ride. And it's a lucky packet.
Exactly.
You don't know what you're getting every day.
Exactly.
Everything changes in a second when you've got kids. Anyway, apart from life normally.
Yes.
And they keep you young.
Definitely.
That's why I wanted lots of them.
Well, it certainly worked because you are so useful, Susan, and I love your energy, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
And honestly, and we wish you all the success with Puzzle Book.
Thank you.
May those hands never be still.
Amen. No, I don't want that. I've lost all my, true story, I've lost my fingerprints.
From
when I go and have a fingerprint done, it doesn't register anything.
You can get up to all sorts of naughty things.
Well, that's it. Maybe that was my tool.
Maybe that, exactly.
That was my tool.
Maybe. Well,
anyway, thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure.
And
you're such an inspiration. You truly are. And I'm so, so glad that our paths have crossed in this life.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks
Susan.
very much.
Wow, I hope you guys enjoyed listening to that episode as much as I did. I just love diving deep into these conversations with incredible women. If this podcast meant something to you, then you can do two things for us. You can please give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. This is really the best way to help support the podcast and help us to grow. And secondly, you can go and follow us on Instagram @chatandchai. We really do share some incredible content on there that really adds value to your life, I hope. And we love engaging with our Chat and Chai tribe. So give us a follow and let's connect over Instagram. Much love from my heart to yours. Until our next Chat and Chai.